You're listening to the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast, where we champion music of all genres, and we believe vinyl is king.
Vinyl is king.
Welcome back to the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast. Today it's going to be a fun show. I'm here with my trusted companion, Mr. Kevin Lee.
Hey, Dave. Hello, everyone.
You know, all the shows for season 5 that we've recorded have been club episodes so far this year. We always take a brief break at our annual end-of-year best of show. That happens, we usually air those on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And we don't usually come back until March or April. We came back in March this year with our new season. And that time off is really important because it allows us not only a chance to catch our breath, but, you know, a chance to kind of look at the show, look at the format, kind of figure out if there's ways we can improve it, make it better. So, it's always important that window. When we came back this season, we really did change up the format more than we have in previous years. If you've been listening to this season, then you know that we launch a club show just on most Mondays. And that's where we discuss one of our 4 records of the month in our members program at Blind Tiger Record Club. Tonight, we're going to be doing our first episode this season that is not a club show. We're talking about our Spotlight album for April. That's just an album that we pick each month to showcase that for one reason or another is not in our members program. It could be that we didn't have enough room that month, or maybe the wholesale price was too high. There are many reasons, but nevertheless, we feel it's an album that you should know about. Tonight's album is Young Man by Jamestown Revival. We're also going to present several new releases. We call them new store editions. Again, these are albums that are not in our program, but they are new releases and they're worthy of discussion. And tonight, we're going to discuss new albums by Lucius, Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. The last segment in tonight's episode is our April Headbanger. And our Headbanger membership is a separate club. It's not one of the albums that you can switch to in our regular club membership. It's month to month, so you can start and stop anytime. It focuses on all metal and hard rock subgenres of music. The benefit of joining is really the main benefit of our regular club as well. It's the best way to secure your copy of these titles every month. These metal titles are usually very limited run, so getting a copy locked down each month, it really is essential if you want to get these titles. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the new album from Comeback Kid titled Heavy Steps. So get ready to rock.
I'm excited about this new addition to the show. And another great thing is these records, like you said, a lot of them are limited editions. And so not only do you get it delivered right to your door, but if you were to go and look for these at your local store or your local vinyl outlet, it's tough to find, right? So why not have it secured, shipped right to your door? And we're going to have a lot of fun with these new records.
85 Supply is the official show sponsor for the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast. 85 Supply is a full-service nationwide merch company. They specialize in screen printing, embroidery, logistics, graphic design, and custom-branded promotional products. From printed t-shirts to the most custom products available, 85 Supply offers over 500,000 products to customize. 85 Supply is trusted by some of the largest brands in the nation, from organizations like MTV, LaCroix Sparkling Water, Spotify, and more. 85 Supply's reputation of quality precedes them. In fact, I have personally worked with 85 Supply for years. Almost all the merch products we carry at the Blind Tiger Record Club were designed, printed, and manufactured with 85 Supply. I tell them what I want, and they help bring the vision to light. Whether you're a touring rock band, an event, or organization, or a podcast and radio show like us, we highly recommend reaching out to our friends at 85 Supply for your next project that needs branded product. Go to 85supply.com or email info@85supply.com to get started. You can also get 5% off your first order. Simply mention Blind Tiger Record Club via email or over the phone with your rep. It's that simple. No coupon codes or anything to remember. Just tell them that Blind Tiger Record Club sent you and you get 5% off your entire first order. Once again, visit 85supply.com or email info@85supply.com to get started on your next merch product. Well, I'm excited to get into these albums. It feels like the way that we used to do the show, we used to cover 4 to 6 albums every episode. So if you enjoy this show and you enjoy discovering new music every week with us, please smash the like button, leave reviews and comments, help us grow the show. All right, let's drop the needle and take a quick listen to the Blind Tiger Record Club's April Spotlight album, New Store Editions, and Headbanger.
Gray skies in my mind, drunk on the sunshine. There ain't no debating the truth. I walk in alleys, the peaks and the valleys, pacing the halls of my youth. Double back in your Cadillac, but the monkey on your back's bringing you down. Them fur coat blues, same old shoes, heavy hammer dudes hanging around. I'm getting down these days.
On April 8th, Jamestown Revival released the folk duo's 4th full-length studio album. It's titled Young Man, and it's on Jamestown Revival via 30 Tigers. You know, the duo is made up of Zach Chance, who performs piano and vocals, and Jonathan Clay, who performs guitar and vocals. They come from Magnolia, Texas, where the two grew up together. So I think I read that they wrote their first song together at 15.
Wow.
So
and this sounds, even though it's an Americana record, you can hear that Texas
yeah, for sure.
thing going
Sure.
on. Yeah.
You know, I feel like we're covering a lot of Texas acts this month since the last show when we did Khruangbin and Leon Bridges.
Right.
It's just a lot of good music coming out of Texas.
Yeah. And I really like this song.
The one we played at the opening?
The one that we played
As
at the
these
opening.
days. Yeah.
These days. It's, like I said, an Americana record, Americana band, but I think sometimes they go for it, for lack of a better term, where a lot of other stuff is performed a little safer melody-wise, or stuff just a little less reaching. And these guys, they'll take some turns where I'll be expecting something else,
Right.
and you get a nice surprise the way that they'll take the vocal or something. There was one note that went down too when we were just playing it here in the studio that was real. I'm like, wow, that's just like the Eagles. That's what they would do right there. But there's some really cool songwriting, and I think these guys have a very Texas flavor to them, but yet they're original. Their vocals work well together. I think you can tell they've been making music for such a long time together, but this is a good one. I like it.
You know, the first single released off the album is a song called Young Man, which is also it's a title track. In some of the early press for the album, they, asked about this song, and they said that the theme of Young Man, really the whole album, is about reconnecting with the purity and innocence of the creative process with the wisdom and perspective gained through age, experience, success, and failures. So they really tried to reconcile these things through the music on this album. The song leads really heavy on bluegrass with fiddle and slide guitar, but it really is the two-part harmonies that these two do that really, is a centerpiece for this group. And you can hear that, prevalent on all the songs, but it sounds really great on this one. This is Young Man.
I walked back down the Riverbend Road, gathered up a couple good stones. Down to the water went looking for a load, wasn't very far from home. I saw my face at the water's edge, a man with a heavy heart. But every now and then he feels so close, but every now and then so far. Tell me, where did the young man go? The one in the water that I used to know. When did he lose that fight? Did it just grow old? Did it just grow tired?
Again, another great example. These guys really going for it vocally.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name of that venue where it's in a cavern? Is it called just the Caverns or something?
Oh, the one here in Tennessee.
Yeah. But it's anyway. There's a venue here in Tennessee that's very where most people who play there are in. There's rock shows there, but most of them are. It's a bluegrass or Americana band.
Mm-hmm.
They've had a show, I think, on PBS that was broadcast from there. But I just picture
That'd be great to see these guys.
Be a
there.
perfect place, right? So entertaining.
Or at the Ryman with the PA off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Entertaining listen though with this record, well written. Nice and creative, and not reserved like a lot of the genre is. So for me, it was a great listen.
Yeah, well, the album was produced by Texas singer-songwriter Robert Ellis, who also wrote and performed on the album. It was engineered by Josh Block, who's worked with Leon Bridges, White Denim, Nicole Atkins out of Now City Sound in Fort Worth, Texas. Block's another established Texas recording kind of staple. Who's worked with a lot of Texas acts. We even mentioned Robert Ellis last week when we were talking about Leon Bridges. I mean, we've had him in our program as well, and he's very established, Texas singer-songwriter. So, that Texas stuff is all in here for sure. You can hear it. I mean, it's true because they're all Texans that, kind of working on the record. This is the first Jamestown Revival album that actually was recorded in a full-time recording studio. They've kind of just done it on their own in different places in the past. It features fiddle on all tracks. It has no electric guitar at all. But I really enjoy this album because the production, and this is something you were even mentioning off mic, if normally if you're listening to a folk category, sometimes it can get a little flat because a lot of times it's just acoustic guitar.
A little sleepy.
Yeah. And this one feels like full production, but it never is really distracting from the songs. And they're great songs.
Yeah.
So, even though the production really is still broken down, it just doesn't, it feels like it's bigger than it is.
And at the end of the day, a great song is a great song. You can take a great song and perform it on any instrument, a piano, a guitar, with a full rock band, with nothing, with very little. And a great song will carry it through. And these guys, they're just good songwriters.
Yep,
and
they really are.
And honestly, for me, this is not my normal cup of listening tea. And every time I listened to it as we were getting ready for the show, I just was liking it more and more. And,
it makes me feel good.
Yeah, and it's just it's pleasant.
Well,
for sure.
The album's on standard black vinyl, but this is another group that always sells out, and I'm usually unable to get it again for the store once we do. And so we've had past Jamestown Revival albums that we've carried that I can no longer order. So you might want to grab this one while we got it.
While you got it.
My love is like a hit and run, but I come back. Blue eyes and summer fun, a heart attack. It was never enough, the summer of love, it was nothing. It was never enough, the summer of love, it was feel like second nature, all this bad behavior. Know I surely want to, but every time I'm with you, I feel like I could fall apart, like dancing with a broken heart.
On April 8th, Lucius released the group's fourth studio album titled Second Nature on Mom and Pop Music. This is the band's first release since 2016, but I feel like I haven't covered an album in the last 3 years without mentioning the two front women, Holly Lasig and Jess Wolfe. They have been featured on songs by artists like War on Drugs, Brandy Carlisle, Kurt Vile, Dawes, Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats, Lucas Nelson and the Promise of the Real, Sheryl Crow, Grace Potter, Harry Styles, Ozzy Osbourne, the Barr Brothers, Ingrid Michaelson, Black Pumas, The Killers, Roger Waters, John Legend, and that's all since the 2016 release. Well, no, that was kind of like all the wins, but the thing is, is since, this is the first album they've released since we've launched the Blind Tiger Record Club. You would think that we haven't really referenced this band much, but we really do mention them often. We've had between 8 and 9 of the artists from that list I just mentioned in our program since 2017. So I think the first time I really took note of them was on the Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats album, Tearing at the Seams. Lasik and Wolf were featured on 2 tracks on that album. It's not only my favorite album from that band, but I honestly believe it's one of the best releases of 2018.
I've heard obviously we've referenced them, but I had not had a chance to get into their work.
Right.
As not being a contributor. And Sheryl Crow and Brandy Carlisle are making an appearance on this album as well. But, this is like, for me being, let's just say I'm over 25. This is like the new ABBA. ABBA is a huge guilty pleasure because the songs are amazing, right? And the vocal harmonies are amazing. It is what it is, and it's just great freaking music. And these girls and the songs that they put together and the way it works, to me, I'm like, oh, that's
everybody must love
the
them.
Current ABBA, and I think everybody else loves that too because it's just so good.
I get the comparison because they do pair their vocals together. It's literally like you're almost like in the studio layering vocals, but instead it's real.
Yeah, they pair them and ABBA had 4, they have 2, and they don't rip anything off, but they do pick harmony notes that are right off those records, right? And stuff, and it works so good for them, and it kind of gives you that feel good feeling, the same thing that an ABBA record from back in the day would do. But anyway, it's
everybody must love working with them because it really is nuts how often I would see them as a feature. And a lot of times they don't feature under their solo names; they just feature as Lucius. They've got to be incredibly talented, but it's more than that because so many people seem to want to have them in on their projects. The first single off this album is a song called Next to Normal. This song peaked at number 5 on AAA radio in March. So Second Nature was produced by Dave Cobb and Brandy Carlisle at RCA Studio here in Nashville. There's a song called Dance Around It that features Brandy Carlisle and Sheryl Crow. They also brought in outside writers for the first time ever. As much as they collaborate, they don't really bring in outside writers on their records. But this time they had Trent Dabbs and Lauren McKenna, both established songwriters here in Nashville. Brandy was essentially the vocal producer. And Lasik and Wolf, as you would expect, said that Carlisle was the vocal producer they've always dreamed of. Wolf said that Brandy was one who could be trusted when she said, "You got the take," and she's also one who understood vocal dynamics and when to push it further. There's also a ballad on this album called "The Man I'll Never Find," where I can really hear Brandy's vocal coaching. She's credited with BGVs on the album, and I'm 99% sure that she's a prominent background vocal on that track, "The Man I'll Never Find." It's an outstanding song. You hear Brandy's vibrato on the high parts of the chorus, and it's spectacular. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of Brandy Carlisle's, and she just sounds amazing with the girls on this record.
I'm looking for the man that'll never find.
order this record. It's really good, and it's really fun. It's groovy. It's dancey. Makes you want to go watch an episode of Chips. It's just fun. It's just fun, and it's done so well. And again, another great piece of work by Dave Cobb,
Right.
And out of the great studio up the street, that just continues to this day to put out great
Yep, all the way from
music.
Dolly Parton's Jolene to Randy Carlisle.
Yeah, I mean, I was just there the night for a Sammy Hagar listening party, and they did that record there, and for the new Circle record that's coming out, and it just sounds good.
Yep.
Right? It sounds good. So
And they did that with Dave Cobb, too.
they did that with Dave, yeah. And then right before that, Slash was in there. Well, it was a little bit before that, but the Slash record that was just released a few months ago.
That's
that
Dave
was down
Cobb as
there.
well. Yep.
And that was Dave. I mean, that's
wears
his
genres.
room. That's his room. And he's going out and playing in bands.
Yep.
Going and doing some shows and stuff. So yeah, an amazingly busy and talented and powerful man, Dave Cobb, and great stuff coming out of RCA Studios. And this record is just another example. And so what the diversity is that he is creating when some of those other records we just spoke of, and then something like this, it's so different from that, but it's just so good. So this is one I think everyone should have in their catalog.
Yep. We have this one available in a limited edition clear pink vinyl. It's in a gatefold jacket with a poster.
I'm a soldier of fortune, going down a dusty road. Got the wind in my back, carrying a heavy load. From Algiers to Santa Barbara, and every mile in between, I've looked for safe harbor, and I wash my soul clean. Yeah. I've been alone nearly all my life. The road is open wide. Electric gypsy, take the wheel and drive for a while.
Can I just say right off the bat here how refreshing it is to hear something coming from the Tom Petty world?
Oh, man. Talk about an artist that you miss. It's like it doesn't feel normal. That I don't like knowing that Eddie Van Halen's not here.
Yep.
I don't like knowing that Tom Petty's not here.
Right.
And when I heard this record, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have Tom, but at least we have him.
It's in the family.
Yeah.
Well, on April 15th, Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs released the band's second album titled External Combustion on BMG. This is the follow-up to their 2020 debut, Reckless Abandon. If you do not know Mike Campbell, as we were just mentioning, he is the primary guitarist for the Heartbreakers and, really one of Tom Petty's main creative partners for years.
Absolutely.
Campbell's released solo projects before. He's collaborated with pretty much, I almost want to say every major artist you can think of. I mean, I'm talking from Stevie Nicks and Bob Dylan's time all the way to current artists. He has co-written smash hits like The Boys of Summer and Heart of the Matter with Don Henley. I couldn't begin to list all of his credits when it comes to playing guitar and composing for other artists. He's also been a touring artist for many other bands as well. He's just one of these guys, like, I don't even know how he fits it all in, because in the middle of all of that, he's also been the band leader for the Heartbreakers. He's one of the most accomplished guitar players, I think, really in music. And in the Tom Petty world, he's co-produced all the Heartbreaker records. And he, is also a member of Petty's side group, Mudcrutch.
For those younger listeners out there, those first songs that you mentioned, huge. It's hard. Like those were
you
those
mean
were
the Don Henley
mass-
songs?
Yes,
Yeah.
those were massive hits, and that was during MTV time, right?
Yeah.
So besides being just everywhere else, it was also a big thing. When everybody was watching MTV, and there were huge hits, and I'm embarrassed that I did not know that he had that much to do with those songs. But this guy's just
He's just like quietly been in the
Yeah.
backdrop for years on some of the biggest music, all from the 80s till
amazing.
now.
It's amazing. And as you get into this record, like I said earlier when we first got into this, it's tragic that we don't have Tom Petty anymore. But when you listen to this record, there's so much of what you loved about Tom Petty on this record that it's almost like finding something that he had done. And and it's a real eye opener to how much Mike had to do with the sound. Of those records.
He played, wrote, and performed with Petty for so long. He's just a natural extension of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And he's not. That's the thing is you can't say like, well, he's sounding like that. Like he is that sound.
Yeah.
So
he is. He was what that was a huge part of the Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers sound and the Dirty Knobs, which is I love the name. It's just he's just doing what he's been doing.
Right.
And like I said, it's refreshing. It's a little secure.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
It kind of
I'm
makes
fine
you
with
go,
that.
oh, good. So I still get to hear new stuff that has that feeling to it.
Yes.
That I thought was over forever. That it was just going to be a catalog type of thing you went back to. So great record, great. I'm very excited that we found it, and I'm really happy that we have it on the show.
Well, the first single is "Wicked Mind." It's currently at AAA radio. It's only been there a few weeks. Peaked at number 46 a couple weeks ago, but that's not really surprising. Like it's not going to go anywhere at that format. There's not a great radio format for this style of music anymore. If it ever does work anywhere, it is at AAA. They did make the emerging artist list at Billboard, coming in at number 14, and they were number 14 on the Heat Seekers album charts, and they were number 25 on the top current albums. But it's just not a radio band. So, this is the current single, "Wicked Mind."
High as a kite hiding from a searchlight. I didn't get home till way past midnight. Sneaking through the alley like a hungry dog. I'm not used to living high on the hog. I don't think you understand what kind of man I really am. I'm a sinner with a rebel soul, got a wicked mind with a heart of gold. Take me to the station, put me on a train. Before I hit the wall and go insane. There's no telling if I'm ever coming back. Who knows what's waiting down the track? I don't think you understand what kind of man I really am. I'm a sinner with a rebel soul, got a wicked mind and a heart of gold. I ain't living a lie. I'll tell you why. Yeah, I got my pride. I ain't afraid to die.
So, along with Campbell, there are appearances from fellow Heartbreaker and Mudcrutch bandmate Ben Montench. There is also appearances from Margot Price and Ian Hunter, who, as you know, wrote and performed the original version of Great White's smash hit "Once Bitten, Twice Shy," and I actually
Right.
think Ian Hunter's version is probably the better.
I agree.
But he's obviously, he's performed for years with bands like Def Leppard, and the album is co-produced by George Draculius, who co-produced the debut, and has a long production history as well, including some Tom Petty work.
I've known George for a while. George was, when I first met him, he was a staff producer for Rick Rubin's label American. He was a staff A&R guy and staff producer, and he had done a ton of work on his own, but as well as a lot under Rick.
Right.
And he produced a record for me by a band called Louder Milk, and he did an amazing job. And then shortly after that, he started doing a lot of work with Tom Petty, and very talented, nice guy, great producer. And again, this record, man, it's just if you, and it's not to sell him short at all,
Right,
you know,
right.
Mike, but it's such a nice record to find if you're a Tom Petty fan.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, it's like, you know, many of the outside projects that Tom Petty would even do, you would see a lot of the same names show up, you know, and that's what happens on this Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs album. If you listen to Tom Petty Radio on XM, and you've heard his show Buried Treasure, that show that Tom used to do, this album to me almost had a feel like that show did, because he a lot of times, you know, he's playing songs that have influenced Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers for years. And so he'd play old blues, you know, musicians that, you know, unless you're really into blues, you may not have heard of before. Or he'd play certain classic rock songs or rock songs from the 50s and 60s, from sometimes obscure bands. And I can hear all of the same way that he kind of lays out on that show stuff that he feels has impacted him and the Heartbreakers. Like I can hear it all over this record.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just a great record. It sonically sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
It's just produced very, very well. And the songs are obviously performed well. I mean, you got seasoned pros working this record on every aspect. And it's worth picking up.
We could really do a whole show on Mike Campbell.
Yeah.
I mean, he's such an important performer when you look at the history of rock music. You know, but this, like you said, I mean, this is definitely one I'd highly suggest.
Underappreciated, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he when you hear his discography and his writing credits and stuff like that, it's one of those guys that more people should be aware of.
Right.
And even as much as into it as I am, I didn't realize that he wrote the Don Henley song. So I'm just blown away.
Yeah. Well, this album is standard black vinyl, and good luck finding it later. You know, these are limited run vinyl. His first album, you can't order anymore. And so, you know, this one's going to be hard to get before long.
I was brave and I loved my cuz. She was waving that dope man up. Banged him on cause I see no future. Sat her down when I poured that tea. I don't know cause I got big temper. Stick close to my rainbow side. Candy corn and that dancing leopard. That's all folks, that's all. She's the kind of girl that make you wanna go faster now. She's the kind of girl that make you steal your child. She's the kind of girl, she's in a here ever after now. There's a cry for help and I
On April 1st, the Red Hot Chili Peppers released the band's first album since 2016, titled Unlimited Love on Warner Music. You know, this is the band's 12th studio album. The album debuted at number 1 on Billboard 200 and in 15 major markets around the world, which is really to say it was number 1 everywhere.
Right.
You know, they were also number 1 on Billboard's Artist Top 100 chart. You know, the album was produced by none other than Rick Rubin. They also brought back original guitarist John Frusciante after a 10-year absence. They started the project in 2020, but rehearsals were canceled due to COVID. So in 2021, they picked things back up at Rubin's Shangri-La Studios in Malibu. They came into the studio with 100 new songs to work on. You know, they told NME that this album is the sum of our lives. That was what they were quoted as calling it. And they really set out to capture as much of the band's now almost 40 years of experience and creativity into one album, and they genuinely believe that that's what they did.
You know, Chili Peppers have a sound that's very distinctive, and they haven't really, you know, there was a few years when they had other guitar players when Dave was in the band and stuff that was got a little, maybe a little edgier, but it's, you hear this record come on and you instantly know it's them.
Yep.
And sonically it sounds great and the song's great. I think one of the interesting things and something in it's kind of like the Beastie Boys were too. It's like they're really kind of doing in AC/DC, right? They're really kind of doing the same thing as they've always been doing.
Yeah, they're
but
just true to
it still sounds fresh, right? It still sounds like, oh yeah, that's another Chili Pepper song. But you could imagine this song on an album years ago.
Yeah.
But it's great, and they find a way to reinvent themselves or to keep it sounding fresh, maybe I should say. But it's this record has a nice, energetic, exciting feel to it. It definitely tells.
It's also interesting to see and just kind of remind yourself of like what recording at this level is like. Like you're not, I mean, you go in with like they weeded this down out of 100 tracks. And that's not just because it had been since 2016 since they recorded. It's because this is a band that puts out one album every so often, and then they world tour it, and when they go and record it, it's gotta be the best that they think they can put out at that time.
And I think you have 4 creative guys.
Right.
That are in this, thing. And because they all have other projects that they do, which always shows me when somebody works when their main band is not working.
Right. And they're doing other things.
Yeah. It's because they have the bug.
Right.
They're a creative person. They have to be creating something. It's just, if you don't do that, you're not fulfilled. You're not happy. And all these guys have those side projects like that. So you can just imagine it's 100 tracks or maybe 100 ideas, not songs fully vetted out or whatever. But when you got 4 guys in the band and you got a couple of years, that are sitting there, you're going to have a lot of ideas to go through with a creative group of guys like this.
Well, the first single off the album is a song called Black Summer. It went number 3 on Billboard's AAA chart. It spent 4 weeks at number 1 on Alternative. And that's their 14th number 1 at Alternative Radio, their 26th top 10 at that format. This is Black Summer.
A lazy rain am I. The skies refuse to cry. Cremation takes its piece of your supply. The night is dressed like noon. A sailor spoke too soon. And China's on the dark side of the moon. Hit me now. Platypus are few. The secret life of Rue. A personality I never knew. Get it on. My Greta weighs a ton. The archer's on the run. And no one stands alone behind the sun. It's been a long time since I made a new friend, waiting on another black summer to win. It's been a long time and you never know when, waiting on another black summer to win.
That song reminds me of another massive Chili Pepper song. Maybe it might even be their biggest hit, the song Under the Bridge. And, that song came out in 1991, and I was at boot camp when that song was released. And, I just grew up loving music. I was in record stores on the weekend trying to find new music. I mean, that's just all I did. When I went away to boot camp, it was the first time I was away from my music for a long period of time. And one of the drill instructors every night, we'd all be in our bunks in the barracks, and we could hear him playing the radio every night. And you know how a lot of times, terrestrial radio will have certain, programming that comes on at the same time every day. And sure enough, man, every night I'd be laying in there, and for weeks, that Under the Bridge would come on. And I didn't hear it before I went in. It was literally on the radio so I'm having to hear it on this little AM FM radio, 1-speaker radio in the drill instructor's office at the end of the hall. And the first thing I did when boot camp was over was I went straight to the BX. I bought a CD player and Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and just played
The power of
yeah,
radio.
just played that song.
Yeah, you know what a big hit that was for them, and one of their signature songs.
Yeah, and
for sure.
this song reminds me of that in a lot of ways. Like it kind of has the same build and feel of that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's kind of like I was mentioning earlier. They don't do something really different than were doing back in '91, but it still sounds fresh, and you don't feel cheated like, oh, I've already heard that song. It's just reminiscent
Right.
to that, but it's still great and stands on its own. This is a strong record if you're a Chili Peppers.
It really is. I was actually surprised at how strong it is. It's kind of like the Foo Fighters. Like, I just think that they continue to put out, again, like you said, I mean, if you're a Chili Peppers fan, this is just good Chili Pepper music.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing with the Foo Fighters. Like, they just keep putting out records where you kind of go, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how this is so good. And but some people, I think, kind of been there, done that, kind of listened to some of these bands for years, and they maybe don't pick up the new Foo Fighters or the new Chili Peppers record. And I just think you're missing out if you don't give this one a shot.
Absolutely. And, maybe we should do a tribute to Taylor at some point.
Yeah.
Because we might not get any more Foo Fighters records. But that is a great example of, again, a band that stays pretty true to their roots as far as the first initial stuff they made, but continues to put out great records. And look, there's a lot of great bands that are still making records today that are nowhere near the quality, not just sonically because of money, but just the quality of writing and performing that are nowhere near where they were when they were at their peak. And bands like this is a world-class, major, impactful, influential band, and they're continuing to invest in their career, and they're continuing to lay it out. I think, and there's a huge tour coming off this record. I think stadiums and stuff.
Yeah.
So
the Red Hot Chili Peppers released 12 albums to date, 2 live albums, 12 compilations, 5 EPs. They've had something like 64 singles if you count their retail, pieces. They've had 51 music videos. They've sold over 80 million albums worldwide. They've been nominated for 19 Grammys. They've won 6. They have the most cumulative weeks at number 1. They've got 87 weeks total. And the most top 10 songs, they've got 25 weeks total on Billboard's alternative song charts. So one of the biggest alternative bands in the history of music for that format. I think this album, honestly, is probably going to bring a couple more nominations for him. I might even bring another Grammy win.
I think so too. I'd be surprised if it didn't.
Yeah, and the tour you were mentioning, it kicks off on June 4th. They're going to be doing a worldwide stadium tour. I think it kicks off in Spain or somewhere like that. So they're doing 32 cities around the world. And the supporting acts, this isn't all in one show. This is throughout the tour. But they have Strokes, Beck, Haim, St. Vincent, Anderson .Paak, Thundercat, and King Princess. And they're actually going to play here in Nashville on August 12th with the Strokes and Thundercat.
Yeah, this is another great record that has a great package. And what color of vinyl do we have, Dave?
Well, we actually have this in limited edition orange double vinyl, and we also have it in a standard black double vinyl. And we also have Californication in 180 gram. It's a double vinyl as well.
Warning, overload. Warning, overload. Warning, overload. Warning.
On January 28th, Comeback Kid released the album Heavy Steps on Nuclear Blast Records. This is the band's 7th studio album and their first release since 2017's Outsider. The band comes from Canada, and they've kind of been an international presence in the hardcore punk scene for now going on 21 years.
From Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, this record, if you're into, this is a metal record. This is almost a thrash metal record.
Yeah.
Some Cookie Monster vocals, in time here and there, but also some melodies and stuff like that. So there's that particular genre of stuff that's really heavy, drops into some great grooves, detuning, all that stuff. But then you'll have more of a song orientated singing chorus, right? To kind of that gives it a nice lift. But if you're into that stuff, this record delivers that.
If I can't protect myself, full friend and foe, can't tell which flowers spike me with thorns. Power me against power, spineless, pitiful. Chaos, I say, into the void. It's like it's really happening. Crossed over and destined into the void. It's like it's really happening. Crossed over and destined into the void. Energy sucker, take it from me. Now I could give. I could give a damn. One too many second chances to a give another. If I can't protect myself, full friend and foe, chaos I say, into the void. I'm gonna say.
You know, they built their following by their live set. And I think so much so that the band, they don't even really self-promote that much. Like, they just tour.
Yeah.
So I really think COVID obviously, put a crimp, kind of in that portion of the band's career. But they came back with this new album, and they're ready to defiantly reclaim the band's territory.
Yeah. This is in our Headbanger category. I think a lot of people, when they hear the term Headbanger, they think of just a certain style of music. But this is the kind of headbanging that actually gets you from the waist up, though, kind of. You know what I mean? You're not just banging your head. It's got those deep, slower power grooves to it and stuff that make you move and stuff. And sonically, the record sounds great. So, like I said, if you're into that genre of music, this record delivers all the elements that you're going to want.
Well, lead vocalist Andrew Newfield said that this album is about hitting the ground running, not knowing when or where the ground could break from underneath you. It's heavy steps on thin ice. It's heavy steps on hollow ground. The retail single and video for this album is the song called Heavy Steps. It talks about you really facing the world that has kind of tested them and wants to bring them more. The band doesn't know what it is, but it knows more is coming. And their band's response, is in the chorus where it says, "I'll be the last to fall."
Heavy steps on hollow ground. You're testing on the rest to maintain and look. It's not the first time you're sure it's a pattern. Say to settle down. I've been faded. Spit on up, cause you might as well leave it to rest. Throw down and hit the ground running. Utter up a response, you can't stay here. But the locks are firm. Keep scoring it, race opposite. I'm David, not one saving. The song's fading, but I'm deadpan waiting for an avalanche. She'll take the soul. I'm in the last to fall. I'm David, not one saving. The song's fading, but I'm deadpan waiting for an avalanche. I'm in the last to fall.
The video for this song picks up where the video for another song off this album leaves off. There's a song called No Easy Way Out. It was the first video they released. And it has the band running through the woods, being chased. We don't really know by who, and it looks like they're getting kidnapped. In Heavy Steps, you find out that they were being kidnapped by a father who wanted them to play his 10-year-old son's birthday party. So it's just kind of like that tongue-in-cheek, kind of attitude, still poking fun, even though it's kind of hardcore, which you see a lot, with bands from this genre. The album was co-produced by John Paul Peters, who recorded the band's debut, Turn It Around, in 2003. A lot of people that reviewed this album says it's a real return to the band's original sound, which would make sense since they are back collaborating with Peters. Kerrang, gave this album a 4 out of 5 rating. Metal Injection gave it an 8.5 out of 10. So it's being reviewed pretty good from editorials that cover this style of music. We have this in a limited edition white vinyl. all the albums in this category are what I call limited run releases. So we'll have it until we don't. Next month's Headbanger is the album For Those That Wish to Exist at Abbey Road from the English metalcore band Architects. So you can sign up and get either one of these albums at the club, and we'll be talking about the Architects next month. Well, that wraps up our show for tonight. We genuinely hope that you enjoyed our discussion of the Blind Tiger Record Club's Spotlight album, New Store Editions, and the Headbanger album. If you want to find out more about any of these albums that we discussed tonight, head to blindtigerrecordclub.com. You do not have to be a member to get these albums, except for the Headbanger, but that's month to month, so you can start and stop anytime. You can also shop in our record store. We have thousands of titles available. We also have tapes, accessories, turntables, and of course, you need to check out all of the BTRC merch. Make sure to check out our sponsor, 85 Supply. They can help you with everything from printed t-shirts to custom products. You can get all your merchandise service needs met with one company from design to print. Listeners of this show get 5% off your first order. Simply mention Blind Tiger Record Club via email or over the phone with your rep. The whole process is really that simple. Go to 85supply.com or email info@85supply.com for more information. Don't forget about all of our past seasons of the show at the Blind Tiger Record Club podcast. It's available on all major platforms, including Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and many others, including Audible. You can go to blindtigerrecordclub.com and just stream directly from our website. Just click on the podcast link, and you can listen to recasts of shows that aired on Lightning 100, as well as our artist interviews and our annual end of year shows. Even if you're not a member of the Blind Tiger Record Club, the podcast really is designed to be a discovery platform. It's a great way to just hear new music. Our next show will air Monday, April 25th. We'll discuss the April Classics record of the month. It's the double vinyl LP pressing of Blink-182's greatest hits. It's loaded with songs like All Small Things, What's My Age Again, I Miss You, First Date, and many, many more. Don't forget to follow the podcast, smash the like buttons, leave reviews and comments, tell your friends about the show. You can stay up to date on all that we're doing by signing up to our email list at the website. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Most importantly, keep coming back. You really do support this show just by listening. I'm David Williams.
I'm Kevin Lee.
And on behalf of all of us here at the Blind Tiger Record Club, thanks for listening. Until next time, keep the wax spinning.
Turn this train around. Turn this train around. Turn this train around right now, so I can go back home.